A little dog. Two.
Hi, I'm Jane Rudolph.
And I'm Monsignor Charles Minong.
I'm Father Joe Glass. Welcome to Reel to Reel.
You know, I was wondering recently, all the news material is given to so many testing programs and ratings of boys and girls throughout various schools and colleges. I agree with all that, but then somehow we lose the perspective of the individual persons as these people are growing up.
It is true. I think sometimes so much time and energy goes into being a student and making the grade and meeting certain standards, we can forget that there's other dimension, a spiritual dimension, psychological dimension to being a human person, especially, yes. I think, during those critical teenage years. We've got to keep sight of that.
Which is nice to see why many college counselors are now looking at what children are involved in rather than just the SAT scores. So that's kind of nice, too. And tonight we're going to find out how some children from Bishop McDevitt High School are involved in a wonderful program. And in a sense, it's something brand new for you.
In the idea of that, though, I'd like you to read Dr. Richard Fitzgibbons tonight, very especially. He has a nice insight on anxieties for us, and I think in fear and panic, and you ought to listen to that.
In looking at the whole human person, the bishops of the state of Pennsylvania have come out with a document entitled To Love and Be Loved. And with us tonight is Father Francis Beach from the Office of Catholic Education. He'll be discussing that document, its content, and how it will be used in the state of Pennsylvania.
You know, to love and to be loved has a very interesting little complaint when someone can actually say to you, all I needed was a little more love.
You talk about the world of prostitution, and that has to be something that's devoid of love. However, some women do capture the love again and turn the corner. Now tonight, we know about rehabilitation programs and how they work, but in the next program, we're going to delve into the past of the women and find out why.
Prostitutes soon discover that they're in a desperate struggle just to survive. Walking the streets, they continue to take chances at their own way of making fast money. As a result, the women find themselves constantly confronting more danger or ending up in jail.
I went out on the streets searching for love, and I thought I could find that through prostitution because I had been sexually abused as a child, and that's how I thought people showed their love. And so by the time I was 14 years old, I had a pimp who forcibly shot me up with heroin.
While many enter into prostitution out of desperation to support expensive drug habits, others get into it because of the terrible scars of lost dignity. This usually can be traced back to emotional trauma suffered many times as a child.
I was abused a lot physically and mentally. And when I was 13, my father died. And that's when I started drinking and smoking marijuana. And as years passed, I just got more involved with drugs, and it just got worse and worse and worse, which eventually ended up with 8 years of heroin addiction. And that led me to the streets, prostituting and stealing from anybody that I could, and you know, it was like a never-ending nightmare.
Lisa Pohl's nightmare ended in Pasadena, California at the Walter Hoving home. Started in New York in the early 1970s as a haven for lost women, the home has since expanded to the West. It provides hope and promise for hundreds of previously hardened women. But for Leslie Swanner, the home's love appealed to her the most, and that was something new in her life.
When I came here, I needed more love than anything, and I was so hardcore that it was the love that they showed me and the patience that they showed me that broke me. And that was different than anything I'd ever experienced before, because usually a broken spirit where I come from is because you've been beaten down.
After 3 months of rehabilitation, the program continues in Garrison, New York. The one-year Hoving Home program addresses the issues of alcoholism, drug addiction, and prostitution in a troubled woman's life. Using a Christian approach, the success rate remains unequaled by secular rehabilitation programs now in existence. In fact, statistics show that 9 out of 10 residents do not go back to their former lifestyle. Here, women are given more than just hope. They also share in the promise of a new and more abundant life through the healing mercy of our Lord.
I was in a lot of different drug programs, and I went through a lot of programs, and they never were able to offer me anything past sobriety. You know, what do I do with all this hurt? Where do I go with it? You know, what? I had too much guilt and too much pain that I just had to stay loaded all the time. And when I tried to take my life, that was like the last straw, you know, and I can see it now as God had his hand on my life, and he definitely had other plans for me.
The women attend classes on campus where a wide variety of subjects are taught. For some, this is the first opportunity they've had to learn to read and write. For others, it's a newly discovered life filled with appreciation, restored relationships, and Christian growth. This beautiful 32-acre estate is located in the Hudson River Valley near West Point. Here in this peaceful setting, for perhaps the first time, Christ's unconditional love is made known to the women. The home charges no fees, and those who enter the program do so out of their own free will. As always, a desire for change has been the only prerequisite for admission. The trained staff of counselors provide the guidance, instruction, and training needed to rebuild a new sense of dignity, a dignity the residents credit only to God and what His power has done to restore their lives.
He's given me peace. He's given me joy. He's restored my relationship with my family. I mean, my family actually respect me now. I actually like myself. I know I'm figuring out who I am. He's restored my, I've been married 5 years. He's restored that relationship with my husband. And I know I put a little effort into it, but I know mainly it's God. And He's given me this home to learn to read, to learn to write, to learn to be a human being instead of, to live like I used to live. I just learned to be a human being and to learn how to love people because I've never trusted people.
By being brought into a warm family environment, the resident eventually comes to realize a change.
The Walter Hoving Home is for people who are serious about changing their lives. Because I know what it's like to be there. I know what it's like to feel like there's no hope. And when I see people that I know think that there's no hope for their life, I can go up and I can tell them, I know there's hope for your life. I was the worst of the worst of the worst. And if Jesus can save me, He can save you too.
After completing their one-year program, the young women continue to be monitored as they face the outside world. If by the end of the second year, a former resident continues her walk of faith and remains free of her former trappings, she is allowed to come back to campus to graduate. After graduation, many go on to work in successful employment. Others assist in various ministries or in drug rehabilitation programs. In short, they become living testimonies to the world that they have been made new again through the power of Christ.
Thomas Merton, the great contemplative, put it well. He said, avoid the temptation to refuse love. And obviously these women have listened and accepted.
And that's how they have learned to become new again. Stay with us because we have more news to tell you.
Pardon me, how often do you go to church?
Well, I haven't lately.
Before 3 nuns and a lay worker were found murdered in El Salvador.
I'm usually on the golf course.
Well, the South African police disrupted funerals again today.
Well, I try to make it on the holidays. In an Istanbul synagogue, terrorists opened fire, killing.
I can't remember the last time I went.
Religious freedom. A message from your Catholic neighbors.
"20 years ago, leukemia and related diseases took the lives of enough people to fill a ballpark. But today, more people are surviving, thanks to research by the Leukemia Society of America.
Hi, I'm Gary Carter. Join the team that's striking out leukemia. The Leukemia Society of America. We're closing in on a killer.
When all is said and done in life, the job, the grades, the status, all of us probably have one similar goal: to love and to be loved. And that is the title of a document that the bishops of the state of Pennsylvania have recently issued. With us tonight on Reel to Reel to explain that document is Father Francis Beach. He's the Director of Secondary Education out of the Office of Catholic Education for the Archdiocese. And I welcome you to Reel, Father.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for being here. To Love and Be Loved, a document on human sexuality, focused, geared mainly toward the teenagers. Why have the bishops written a document like this now?
Okay. Joe, I would think that there are a number of reasons the bishops have chosen to write this document at this time in history. One, the bishops are very much aware that our young people are growing up in an environment which at many times is at odds with or even hostile to our Catholic Christian values, especially in the area of human sexuality. Secondly, our society has tended to cheapen human sexuality, especially in the area of advertisement. Third, our bishops are concerned about the increasing rise of teenage pregnancy in this state and the rise of AIDS.
So these things put together have prompted the bishops to say, let's get our voice out there, let's amplify it. We've been speaking for years, of course, let's put it all together in a document that we all can sign. Give me some insight into the content of the document. The voice of the bishops, very different than the voice of the media or perhaps teenage peers. What is the voice of the bishops? What message are they conveying to our young people?
Okay. The bishops are, first of all, sending out a pastoral letter to the youth of our state. And they're doing a number of things in that letter. One, the letter is very affirming and positive and supportive of young people today. And the bishops are reminding our youth of how important they are to God and how important they are to the church. And they're not just words or lip service. We truly mean that. Our young people are the church of today, not the church of tomorrow, and they're very important to God and to the church. Secondly, the bishops are reminding our young people of the goodness and the dignity that's theirs because they have been created in the image of God and because God dwells within them. Okay, and they belong to the God, to the Lord. And as they come to appreciate their goodness, they will also come to appreciate the goodness that's in others. And third, the bishops are guiding our young people to help them to understand and to appreciate the dignity of their human sexuality and how their human sexuality is integrated into their whole person and how it's meant to be used according to the giver, the creator, and that is to be used within the context of a permanent commitment of marriage. So that's the summary, basically, of the document to the youth.
And how will this document be used? Well, how do you envision it being implemented in the state of Pennsylvania?
Okay. The document has already been sent out to all of our elementary and secondary schools and our parish religious education programs. It was sent out approximately 4 weeks ago. The Pro-Life Educational Foundation of Philadelphia has been very generous in underwriting the cost of this document. They have sent us a check for $5,000, which is the total cost of the document. We have sent out 40,000 copies of the statement. The group that's earmarked would be 8th grade students in our elementary program and 9th and 10th grade students in the secondary program and that same age group in our religious education programs.
Father, give me your own experience. What do you see on the horizon? Again, we've got the young people, I think, in a difficult position that's being acknowledged by the bishops. Many different voices speaking to them about sexuality and sexual issues. How do you, with your experience working with young people for so many years, see them responding? What voices are they hearing? What voices are they hungering for? I guess what I'm looking for is some word of hope. Is anyone hearing messages such as the bishops have just published?
Yes, and I would say yes to that, Joe. Our young people today, I truly believe, are hearing all kinds of mixed messages from society, from the media, from MTV and so forth, but they're yearning for people in authority, be it society in general, their parents, teachers, the church, to give them support and to give them an ability to appreciate the dignity of their own human sexuality. I think they're yearning for that support. For instance, just within this past year, there are two programs among teenagers that have developed. One is the Inasense program, which you will be referring to later on in this program. And that's a group of teenagers from Bishop McDevitt High School that put on what we call chastity skits. There are 9 vignettes. And besides putting them on, they also work as peer facilitators with their own youth group.
And you were going to quickly mention the other group.
The other group is Teen Esteem, which is a diocesan program of youth that do the same thing.
So the message is being heard. Father, I thank you for being here and for sharing your insights on this document, To Love and to Be Loved. With a little more information, here's Jade.
I'm reading right from the document. Our dignity and worth as persons come from our special relationship to God. As a father, He has given us all the gifts we have, including our sexuality. So there are many more gems inside the book, and if you'd like to have a copy, it's only 20 cents to cover the printing costs and also to get it to you. So you can either contact Father Beach or us right here at Reel to Reel. We'll put you in touch.
We have more to be in touch with you about. In this whole business of this human sexuality and difficulties, fear is terrible. And Dr. Richard Fitzgibbons tells us what happens when fear gets out of control. You get anxiety.
Panic or anxiety attacks are among the most frightening of all human experiences. When a person is going through one of these, he or she feels like they might die. They become very dizzy, their heart races, they may develop shortness of breath, they feel like they're going to faint. What happens here is that fear becomes out of control and manifests itself in a person's body. Now, one of the reasons this develops frequently in adult children of alcoholics is because when they were children, they did not have, day in and day out, that nice sense of being protected. They felt cheated out of that. And we all need that in order to buffer or to counter fear. If we don't feel safe and we don't feel protected, then tremendous amounts of fear enters us. This fear can go underground and emerge later in our lives, in our 20s or 30s or 40s, in the form of panic attacks. Now, a number of different symptoms occur in people who have these attacks. First of all, the sight of them oftentimes is some enclosed space. A shopping mall, a supermarket, a train, an elevator, in which a person feels that they must escape quickly, because unconsciously what's going on is they don't feel safe and they don't feel protected. They feel like they're going to faint. Many of their muscles go into spasm. They may get colitis or ulcer disease or back pain or neck pain because of all the fear that's entered them. Sometimes some people become so panicky that they become afraid to leave their homes. They become very isolated, or they have to limit their traveling. They're afraid to go over bridges, or they're afraid to fly. And all of this because they've lost that nice sense of safety or protection from their childhood days. Finally, a major symptom is discouragement. Many people who have panic attacks are fearful that they'll never get over them, that they're going to be plagued by these things for the rest of their lives. But that isn't true. Fortunately, this fear can go away and they can get a sense of protection that overcomes these panic disorders. Now, several things need to be done to remove panic attacks from a person's life. First, a thorough physical examination is important because rarely there can be some chemical cause for this. Secondly, medication can be helpful. Tranquilizers can be of aid while you're trying to deal with the underlying causes of the panic disorder. Thirdly, it's helpful to correct the false thinking. The false thinking from childhood says catastrophes are going to occur, just like occurred in childhood. You're not going to be safe. You can correct that by thinking, well, I am safe. My childhood is different than my adult life. I'm safe in my adult life. It's helpful to understand then the causes of this from childhood. Also, we want to try to break the control of the past, to think, I'm not going to let my childhood control my present life. There are people in my life today who love me deeply. It can also be helpful to spend time daily meditating upon the fact that one is deeply loved. The more loved we feel, the less likely we are to become panicky or very anxious. And finally, it's helpful to grow in trust. That is, trust means creates a sense of safety or a sense of protection. Sometimes people have so much fear from their childhood because of alcoholism and those terrible memories that they even need to pray, like, God, give me a sense of trust, give me a sense of being protected. As they grow in that, fear or panic attacks will slowly diminish and ultimately leave their lives.
There's no easy solution, of course, but we have to begin working somewhere. And when one thing happens, the whole body shuts down, especially in anxiety. It's nice to hear a doctor give us the instructions.
And it's nice to have you with us tonight, so don't go away. There's much more to come. Inasense, a group of students from Bishop McDevitt High School who promote the virtue of chastity, have performed at high schools and colleges throughout the Delaware Valley.
Excuse me. I want to give blood.
You're in the right place. Come with me.
I heard about those people in the accident. I just want to help.
Great.
How are they doing anyway?
Well, last we heard, they're going to be just fine.
You know, it's a good thing you guys were there.
No. It's a good thing you are here.
Call the American Red Cross. Your neighbors need you.
We welcome your comments and suggestions and encourage you to write to us at Reel to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, Room 907, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19103, or call us during regular business hours at 215-668-9842.
Certain of our words tend to get frozen or put on hold. One such word is chastity. It loses all its meaning in many instances, and that could be due in many ways to the public press, the vehicles of television and radio.
It's true, Monsignor, and in the pamphlet and the booklet we've been talking about all evening, there is a message directly given to the media professionals that they harbor a distinct responsibility towards the theme of sexuality with our young people. And obviously you might feel that movies and television falls far short. Well, the students from Bishop McDevitt High School are going to get together and use music, theater, and dance to promote chastity. Chastity, the state or quality of not having engaged in unlawful sexual intercourse. The dictionary definition of what 10 high school students are promoting to their peers. Inasense, a group of students from Bishop McDevitt High School who promote the virtue of chastity, have performed at high schools and colleges throughout the Delaware Valley.
We have a good time doing it, and it makes it even better when we know it helps people.
With a mixture of dialogue and mime, Inasense uses scenes from typical situations teens would be involved in. Reverend Thomas Herron with Mary Kay McKenna began in 1986 to put this group together.
Mrs. McKenna is the heart, the soul, and the backbone of the group. She has a degree and background in theater arts. I asked her to accompany me to an overnight retreat with a group of students. Part of that retreat program was a performance of mime. She came to me and told me that she could teach students that. Then I presented this idea with her, and that's where we started to gel.
Wait a minute, Tina. You have to think about this. You don't want to rush in anything you're gonna regret later.
With her theatrical background, Ms. McKenna, a religion teacher, materialized the group in May of 1988.
Father Herron approached me as to perhaps putting some skits together to help teach and to help promote pure ministry and the message of chastity. And I said, yes, my role is writer, director, editor, teacher. He took me on a senior retreat where they showed some mime and dance involved in prayer. And I said to him, do you want that to work at McDevitt? And he said, I said, I could make it work. And he said, yeah.
I wish that I could give you something more, that I could be yours.
There's a little piece of my understanding of chastity in every single scene of the show. The basic definition surfaces in the game show. I tried to show the distinction between what's being taught in the secular world, what the kids hear from movies and books and even from their own friends. What's on the street, for that matter, is epitomized in Honk Hamstring. you know, and that's why he's so laughable. And they laugh at him. And then there's Miss Chastity Virtue, kind of shows the other side. And what does she win at the end? She wins choice, freedom, self-respect, dignity, that there are consequences that are good to choosing chastity. And we also admit that it isn't easy. We admit that right up front with the conscience scene, where Alan, well, the guy and the girl, which their names are Guy and Girl, are being torn back and forth by the consciences, what every guy wants to hear and what every girl wants to hear. So the meaning's in the show.
Chastity, it's a question of the day.
Okay, it's being in control of your sexual desires according to your vocation in life.
You're married, like, just with your husband.
I've seen them change. In the very beginning, they were very skeptical, doubtful, you know, an awful lot of joking going on among themselves. And I think a lot of that was because they weren't confident. There were many times I said to them, do it like this when I was first teaching. And they'd say, oh, no, I'm not doing that. You crazy, I'm not doing that. I say, trust me, trust me. One of the kids said, well, you know, in the beginning, we just thought this might be fun to do. But the more I do it, the more convinced I am.
STD, this is not an oral treatment. Hurricane ruin your engine if you catch my drift. Hey,
I am young, and I am going to change. I realize that I don't have to express my love by having sex. I can wait for marriage, and he can wait too.
Chastity to me means recognizing that your sexuality is a gift from God.
You don't have to feel like you have to do it just because you're like everybody else is doing it.
Only having sex through marriage so that life and love can be brought together.
But when you're married, all the world celebrates you doing it. Who?
I can't do this. It's not that time. I do care about you. This is special.
I hope that you will open your hearts and your minds and listen to their message of chastity. I present to you, Inasense.
Well, this has been quite a program tonight. I think we could probably subtitle it The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. We've certainly covered the range of human experience. For me, one of the good signs was the positive tone of the bishop's letter that Father Francis Beach spoke about, to love and to be loved. Sometimes I think we associate the church with human sexuality. We see that as a negative combination. We hear the church saying, no, no, no. But here's the church with a very positive voice.
And a better sign yet, Joe, you know, there's a beautiful response of our school teachers, their sense of responsibility and dedication to learn how to make this proper presentation to give beautiful ideas of sexuality to you and your children.
And it's not just for teenagers. We all wanted to point that out to you. It's for everyone. So even if there aren't any young people in your family, feel free to give us a call or Father Beach's office. And feel free to join us again next week on Reel to Reel when we'll have another host of interesting subjects. We'll see you then.
Good night, and God bless you.
Good night. See you next week on Reel to Reel.
Travel arrangements for Reel to Reel by Atkinson and Mullen, Newtown Square, PA, 215-359-5980.
We have often used these 30 seconds to talk about the young adult prayer group.
That is because we would like every young man or woman, single or married, to come and experience the power of God in our midst.
We meet this coming Saturday and every fourth Saturday of the month at St. Charles Seminary.
So, if you are 18 to 35, single or married, come on out to St. Charles Seminary this Saturday at 7 p.m.
When you come, introduce yourself and say you saw us on Reel to Reel.